You wouldn't want to hear this from your own mother. I remember that afternoon as if it were yesterday. I was thirsty, almost parched, so I slipped out of my bedroom onto the kitchen floor where the late afternoon sun was slanting through the curtain. The tiles felt cold under my bare feet. It was quiet, too quiet, in fact. As I reached for a glass from the cupboard, I paused because I thought I heard my name being said in a tone I'd never heard before. I froze, glass halfway to my lips. My heart started pounding, louder than the humming of the refrigerator. I edged closer, silently, each step a cautious whisper against the tile as I moved toward the half-open door. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but something compelled me to stay. And that's when I heard her, my mother, speaking to my aunt on the phone. She said I never wanted her. The words landed like a physical blow, as though someone had taken my heart, placed it on a low shelf, and stomped on it. My breath caught in my throat, my vision blurred, and in that split second, the glass slipped from my hand. The sound of it shattering on the floor echoed. I fled. I raced down the hallway, the sound of broken glass trailing behind me like a scream. I slammed the door to my room and dropped to the floor. I wanted to disappear. A part of me died in that moment when I realized that the woman who gave me life, or at least the one who should have cherished me, could say those words about me. That afternoon, the world tilted sideways. My once safe home morphed into unfamiliar territory, where love turned poisonous and silence became betrayal. I lay on the floor, listening to my own ragged breaths, dizzy with shock and grief, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Never wanted her. It kept repeating in my mind, echoing off each thought like a broken bell. I couldn't believe it, didn't want to believe it. How could she say that about me? My whole life flashed before my eyes. The scraped knees, the birthday cakes, the whispered goodnights. And beneath it all, I realized our foundation wasn't made of love, but denial. I sat there, trembling, as dusk crept in. The hallway grew darker, the house silent. I dare not move. And then, something dark and furious took hold inside me. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was fury. How dare she say those words? How could she think that? Even for a split second. That was the moment I swore I'd find out why she said it. Not what I had done wrong, but what she had lost. Because somewhere inside that sentence, there was a confession, and I needed to know the truth. My name is Maya, or insert your name. This is the story of how I discovered what really happened, and why I was never supposed to find out. It's a journey through betrayal, secrets, and ultimately, forgiveness. Or was it? Stay with me, because the full story is far darker and much more twisted than I ever imagined. The night after I heard those words, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows crawl across it like ghosts. My mind played that sentence again and again. I never wanted her. It wasn't just painful, it was toxic, like a virus that had infected every childhood memory I held dear. Every bedtime story, every school lunch, every hug now felt fake, or at least conditional. The next morning, I avoided her. I pretended to be sick and stayed in bed, skipping breakfast, ignoring her knock on the door. I couldn't look her in the eye. I didn't trust myself not to scream. She called through the door. "Maya, are you okay?" I didn't answer. She paused, then walked away. Around noon, I quietly got up. The house was too quiet. My mom must have gone out. Something inside me was pushing, no, pulling me toward answers. I knew I wasn't supposed to snoop, but the wound in my chest burned hotter than guilt. I tiptoed into her bedroom. Everything looked so normal. Too normal. A made bed, a row of perfume bottles, her old jewelry box, a framed photo of us at the beach when I was maybe 6. I stared at that photo for a long time. Were we happy then? Or was she just pretending? My fingers trembled as I opened her top drawer. It was full of receipts, makeup, old bills. I dug deeper. There, beneath a pile of documents, was a sealed envelope, slightly yellowed with age. My name was written on the front, in handwriting that wasn't hers. That stopped me cold. I didn't open it right away. I stared at it like it might explode. Why wasn't it given to me? Who had written it? Why was it hidden? I held it up to the light. Inside, what looked like a letter. I sat down on her bed, heart racing, and opened the envelope. "Dear Maya, I'm sorry you had to find this on your own. If you're reading this, it means the truth was never told to you, and that breaks my heart. You have always been loved. Always. But there are things about your past that you have the right to know. Things your mother couldn't bring herself to explain. Your biological mother, her name was Alina. She was my sister. I dropped the letter. For a second, the world tilted again, just like it had in the kitchen. My hand shook. What did that mean? Her sister? That would make my mother not my mother. My aunt? I kept reading, breathless. Alina was young. Too young. She was scared, alone, and didn't know how to raise a child. She made the hardest decision of her life and gave you to us, believing it was the only way you'd have a future. She left soon after. No one heard from her again. Your mother, the woman you've called Mom all your life, never fully forgave Alina. She raised you, yes. She tried her best. But part of her always resented what had happened. And that's not your fault. You were the best thing to happen to this family. I want you to remember that. With love, Aunt Lena. I sat frozen, the paper trembling in my hands. So, it was true. My mom wasn't really my mom. She was my aunt. And that sentence I overheard, I never wanted her, wasn't just a moment of cruelty. It was truth. She had raised me, but not chosen me. That explains so much. The weird distance, the cold silences, the way she sometimes looked at me like she was searching for something she'd never find. I thought she was just tired or stressed, but maybe she was carrying a wound too. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or vomit. The person I trusted the most had been living a lie. Or maybe I had. I put the letter back in the envelope and slipped it into my hoodie. I cleaned up the drawer as best I could and tiptoed out. I spent the rest of the day staring at the wall, asking myself the same question over and over again. Who am I? And what happened to my real mother? That night, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I needed to confront her, but I needed proof. I needed to know if this letter was real. So I made a decision. The next day, I would go to the one place I never thought I'd visit, the hospital where I was born. And what I found there changed everything. I woke up the next morning with my chest aching like I hadn't slept at all. I had tossed and turned the entire night. The letter from Aunt Lena burned into my memory. Her words haunted me. Your biological mother. Her name was Alina. She was my sister. My entire identity had cracked open, and I was standing over the rubble, unsure whether to pick up the pieces or run. But I couldn't just sit in silence anymore. I had to know if it was true, not just believe it. Asterisk prove, asterisk it. I needed something real, something official. So I made a plan. I told my mom I was going to the library to study. My voice didn't even shake, which surprised me. She nodded, not looking up from her tea. I walked out the door with my phone, my wallet, and the envelope in my bag. And then I took a bus across town to the place listed at the bottom of my birth certificate, St. Hilaire Regional Hospital. The ride felt endless. As the bus rolled past streets I hadn't seen since I was a child, I realized how little I actually knew about my past. My mom, no, my aunt, had always kept things vague. Asterisk. You were born during a rough time. It doesn't matter now. Asterisk, she used to say. But it did matter. It mattered more than anything now. When I got to the hospital, the building looked older than I remembered. Faded bricks, rust around the signage. But the name was the same. I walked up to the information desk, my heart in my throat. I said. I was born here in 2007. I was hoping to request my birth records. The nurse looked up. Her badge read Susan. Do you have an ID? She asked. I nodded and handed it over. She typed something into her computer. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to be pushed. You'll need to fill this out, she said, sliding a form across the counter. And if you're under 18, we'll need a parent or guardian signature. I froze. My stomach dropped. Actually, I said, fumbling for a lie, my mom is unavailable right now, but it's really important. Susan gave me a look that hovered between suspicion and sympathy. Are you trying to find something? She asked gently. I hesitated. Then I blurted it out. I just found out the woman who raised me might not be my real mom. Her expression changed instantly. She lowered her voice. Wait here. 5 minutes later, she came back with a clipboard. She slid it toward me. This isn't exactly legal, she whispered. But sometimes the truth is more important than red tape. My hand shook as I signed. She returned 10 minutes later with a thin brown folder. "This is what we found," she said. "But there's something strange." My heart dropped. I opened the folder. It was a copy of the birth record. My name, Maya L. Date of birth, May 18th, 2007. Mother's name, Alina C. Father's name, unknown. No mention of my mom, the woman I'd grown up with. Just Alina, the name from the letter. I felt a rush of emotion. It was true, all of it. My biological mother was real. She had been here. She had named me. I kept reading. There was a note at the bottom of the record, handwritten. Infant released to custody of Lenora C., maternal aunt, by signed relinquishment of Alina C. on May 22nd, 2007. That was it. For days after I was born. Asterisk 4 days asterisk. My mother had given me away. And the woman I called Mom had taken me in. I didn't know if I should cry or scream. But Susan was still watching me. "There's more," she said, hesitating. "I wasn't supposed to show you this, but there's an old note in the archive system. It was flagged as sealed, but I saw it when I opened your file." She pulled out a sticky note and scribbled an address. "This is the last known contact address we had on file for your mother, Alina. It's from 10 years ago, but it's something." I stood outside the hospital for a long time, staring at the note. It was across town, near the edge of the city. I didn't know what I expected. A home? A grave? But I knew one thing: I was going. This wasn't about just filling in the blanks anymore. This was about finding her, seeing her, asking her why. I took the next bus and followed the address. As the city passed by outside the window, I kept replaying the image of that file. Asterisk relinquishment. Unknown father. Sealed notes. Asterisk. I knew I was walking into something heavy, maybe even painful, but I couldn't stop now. When the bus finally reached the address, I almost didn't get off. The street was quiet. Old houses, rusted mailboxes, a cat watching me from porch. I walked up to the number on the paper, 82 Willow Lane. My hands were sweating. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, then a third time. Still nothing. I turned to leave, my chest tight, throat burning, when I heard the creak of a window. A voice. A woman's voice. "Who's asking about Alina?" "Who's asking about Alina?" The voice was raspy, tired but alert. It came from a second-story window, half covered in lace curtains. I squinted up and saw a woman, maybe in her late 60s, peering down at me. I swallowed. I think I might be her daughter." There was silence. Her eyes narrowed. Then, without a word, she closed the curtain. I stood there, heart pounding. Was that it? Did I scare her? Was she calling the police? But a moment later, the front door creaked open. "Come in," the same voice said, now flatter, cautious. I hesitated. My hands trembled slightly, but I stepped inside. The house smelled like old tea, dust, and something faintly floral. The living room was dim, with fading furniture and picture frames on every wall. The woman sat down in an armchair and pointed to the couch. "Sit." I obeyed. She studied me, not like a stranger, like she was trying to recognize something familiar. "You've got her eyes," she finally said. "Alina's. Big, sad, and way too curious for their own good." My throat tightened. "You knew her?" She gave a bitter laugh. "I raised her. That stopped me cold." "You're her mother?" The woman nodded. "Name's Rose. I was Alina's mom. Your grandma, I suppose." I didn't know what to say. There were so many questions battling in my head that I couldn't pick just one. I started, but she cut me off. "You thought she disappeared, that she left you behind, that she didn't want you." She shook her head. "Well, it's not that simple." I leaned in. "Please, I need to know the truth." She sighed. "Truth isn't always kind, girl. You sure you want it?" I nodded. She stared at me for a long time, then leaned back in her chair, eyes distant. "Alina was 17 when she got pregnant. Thought she was in love with some guy. Older, fast-talking, full of promises. Never told us his name. He disappeared the minute she told him. She was devastated." She paused, staring out the window. I tried to be supportive. "But your Aunt Lenora?" She was furious. Said Alina was reckless, selfish, dragging shame onto our family. They fought every day. screamed like animals. She shook her head. Lenora always had a temper and a savior complex. She wanted to fix everyone. Fix Alina. Control her. I felt a lump forming in my chest. And then I was born. She nodded. You came early. Alina nearly died giving birth. She was terrified. Alone. And Lenora, she saw a chance. My stomach twisted. She told Alina the baby would ruin her life. Said she'd never get into college, never have a future. That she'd never be free. I covered my mouth. So, she convinced her to give me away? Grandma Rose's face hardened. She didn't convince her. She manipulated her. That hit like a knife. She told Alina, give her to me, and I'll raise her right. You'll be free. Alina was drugged, weak, confused. For days later, you were gone. Tears welled up in my eyes. And what happened to her? Where did she go? Grandma Rose looked away. She tried to stay. She begged Lenora to let her visit, to see you. But Lenora refused, said it would confuse the child. So Alina left. Heartbroken. I whispered, and then? She bounced around, couch to couch, tried to work, tried to heal, but she was never the same. Last I heard, she was in Oregon. That was 10 years ago. My head was spinning. It was like a puzzle snapping together, piece by painful piece. She wanted me, I said softly. She didn't just leave. She was pushed. Rose nodded. And Lenora? She couldn't handle the guilt. That's why she resented you. You were proof of the choice she forced your mother to make. I leaned back on the couch, dizzy. All my life, I'd thought I was unwanted. A burden. A mistake. But I wasn't. I was loved. Just stolen. I sat in that house for hours, listening to stories. Some warm, some dark, all of them true. Grandma Rose showed me photos. Letters. A faded baby dress. A tiny silver bracelet with my name engraved on it. Memories I never had. And when I finally stood to leave, she pressed something into my hand. A phone number. I don't know if it still works, she said, but it's the last number I had for her. My heart skipped. It was a number with an Oregon area code. I tucked it into my pocket like it was gold. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, just like I had days earlier. Only now I had answers. And one final question. Was she still out there? And she doesn't want to see me? But the more I thought about it, the more I knew. I had to try. I had to call. And what happened when I dialed that number? Well, that changed everything. I stared at the piece of paper for over an hour. The Oregon number sat there in black ink, curling at the corners where my fingers had clenched it too tightly. It felt like more than just a number. It felt like a lifeline or a grenade. What if she hated me? What if she didn't want to talk to me? What if she was gone? I opened my contacts, hovered over the dial pad, then stopped. My thumb trembled. I closed the screen. Again, until I finally whispered aloud. You came this far. Don't stop now. So I dialed. 1 ring. 2. 3. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the 4th. Then a click. Hello. A woman's voice. Calm. Mature. Soft. I froze. I couldn't speak. For a full 5 seconds, I just listened to the sound of her breath on the other end. Hello, she repeated. I swallowed. Hi. I'm sorry to call out of nowhere. This might sound crazy, but is your name Alina? There was silence. A long, breathless pause. Then, who is this? I shut my eyes. My name is Maya. Another pause. You were born in May 2007 in St. Hilaire Hospital. Silence. And then I heard it. A gasp. Sharp, real. Oh my God. It was her. It was really her. I found a letter, I said, my voice shaking. From Aunt Lena. Then I went to the hospital. And then I spoke to your mother. My grandmother. She didn't speak. Just breathed. I didn't call to blame you. I whispered. I needed to know if you were real. If you're okay. If you ever think about me. A long breath. Then the sound of crying, soft but deep, like something had broken open inside her. Maya, she said finally, I think about you every single day. Tears burst from my eyes. I never wanted to let you go, she said. But I was so young. And your aunt, she said would be best for you. That I'd ruin your life. I wasn't strong enough to fight her. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. I understand now, I said. It wasn't your fault. I still dream about holding you, she said. I still hear your first cry. I missed everything. Your first steps, your first day of school. I missed you. The pain in her voice was unbearable. I miss you too, I whispered, even if I didn't know it. We talked for hours that night. About everything. She lived alone in a small town in Oregon. Never married. Never had more children. She said she always felt like a part of her heart was missing. I told her about my life, the school I went to, my hobbies, my fears. I even told her about the night I overheard my aunt say she never wanted me. She cried again. She said, I never thought I'd hear your voice. You sound like me when I was your age. At some point, I laughed. Really laughed. And she laughed too. It felt natural, like finding a melody I never knew I was part of. Before we hung up, she said, if you ever want to meet, I'm here. Always. No pressure. Just always. I said yes before she finished the sentence. 2 weeks later, I stepped off a bus in Oregon. I saw her standing at the edge of the platform, clutching her purse like it was a lifeline. She looked nervous, beautiful, and just like me. We walked toward each other slowly, then faster. Then we were hugging, crying, laughing, shaking. There were no words that could match the weight of that moment. None needed. She smelled like lavender and warm coffee. Her hands were soft. She kept touching my hair like she couldn't believe I was real. Hi, I finally said, smiling through tears. Hi, she replied, her voice cracking. My baby. We spent 3 days together. She showed me her favorite bookstore, her childhood photos. We cooked dinner together, terribly, and stayed up late talking about everything we'd missed. She apologized again and again. But I told her, asterisk, you did the best you could. And now, we have time to make new memories. Asterisk, before I left, she gave me a small box. Inside was a locket. It had a photo of me as a baby, the one she said she carried in her wallet for years, and a photo of her, young, smiling. On the back, engraved, always yours, no matter what. When I got home, everything felt different. My aunt, the woman who raised me, noticed. I could see guilt in her eyes, even if she didn't say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse her. I just said, I know. She cried. She tried to explain. And even though part of me still hurt, I told her I forgave her. Because holding on to pain is a heavy thing. And I'd carried enough. It's been a year since that call. Now, I talk to my mom, my real mom, every week. She even visited us once. It was awkward, but healing. We're learning how to be mother and daughter. And I'm learning who I really am. Not the unwanted girl. Not the mistake. Not the lie. I'm Maya. I was loved. I am loved. And I'm finally free.